Welcome to Gerstel's LabWorks True Podcast, the show about analytical chemistry, interesting instruments, and the challenging analytical problems that they solve.
Welcome to the Gerstel LabWorks True Podcast, where we talk about stories around the analytical chemistry, and our today's guest is Marco Fraatz. But before we start with Marco, welcome to my co-host, Kurt Sexton.
Hello everyone. Good to be here today.
Yes, and now we switch over to Marco. Marco Fraatz is from the Justus Liebig University of Giessen in Germany, and a very warm welcome. Hello, Marco.
Hi, Jan. Hi, Kurt. Very nice to meet you here.
Yeah, thank you.
Same.
And thank you to be our guest today. And I know there are some pretty interesting stories you have done in your past and hopefully also in the future. And today we would like to listen to some of your failures and some of your highlights you get from the last things. Before we start, can you give us a short introduction, who you are and where you're working and what are you working for?
Yeah, sure. So I will try. I was born and raised in Hamburg, and then I studied food chemistry there. And after my second state examination, or during my second state examination, I did a practical course in the Netherlands for half a year at Unilever Flavor Research. And there I was in contact for the first time with the very interesting world of flavor research and gas chromatography and the related things. And so before that, I did lots of HPLC work during my study, and I really did not like gas chromatography because you could never see where the leaks are and very tiny columns and all those things. But I thought it's always not working, but I think I have to blame my university a little bit about this because maybe the machines were not the best ones back then. Anyhow, at Unilever, I had the pleasure to work with lots of different GCs, and especially it was the first time I got in contact with the Gerstel autosendler setups and all those nice injection techniques, and I did some experiments and flavor research regarding injection techniques. So dynamic headspace, back then not automated, but just manually. And Twister for the first time, they were really new, and we could try out the Twister and the headspace and some Twister things for aroma research. And of course, lots of SPIMIs and static headspace. And so it was really, really interesting work for me because I love automating things. So I like to try things out and to get complex things sorted out with help of machines or in the computer with little scripts or such things. So so I can say my interest in aroma and gas chromatography and automation got started then. So I went back to Hamburg to finish my studies, so my second state examination, and then I decided that I want to do a PhD in the flavor research, and I went to Hanover to the group of Professor Berger, and there I started learning that fungi can do very interesting things with regard to flavor research. And yes, and there I met my current boss, Mr. Professor Holger Zorn. He was doing his habilitation work there back then, and he asked me if I want to join him as a postdoc after that, and I went with him to the Technical University of Dortmund. And after that, I joined him again by moving to Giessen, to the Justus Liebig University. And here I am now as a, how to say, I think it's civil servant. I'm not sure it's a German thing. If you are working for the government more or less, or get paid as a Beamter for the German speaking
Kurt,
listeners.
how is that called? Government something?
The closest thing to Beamter would be like office worker, or not by office, something civil service office, like important office. So that civil servant's probably the closest thing I can think of in English. So
Yeah.
it looks like you spent part of that time building Legos too. I wanted to bring that up. The audience can't see all the Legos behind you.
This is
we have to tell the audience that we are not having the audio podcast only, so we are seeing us over the Teams meeting, and so we can see in the office of Marco and see some Lego stuff there. That's great to see.
I was really into Lego as a child, and
me too.
The Dark Ages came, and fortunately, I got two sons, and they were interested. I don't know why in Lego, and that brought me back, and I finally could build all those big Star Destroyers and Death Stars I wanted to do as a child. So yes.
It kind of makes sense, though. I mean, but one of the things I've seen Jan do is build a Gristle auto sampler out of Legos before, So I think that anyone who likes to tinker and build things, I think if you like Legos, you tend to like the auto samplers and crazy things you can do with them. It kind of matches up.
Marco, there's a lot of similarities because my son also loves the Lego stuff, even the Star Wars thing, and we have to build that together. In earlier times, now we build this himself. I can just look. Okay, so since which time you're in Giessen? When have you moved?
Yeah, so in Giessen, I started here working in 2009.
Okay.
So it's quite a long time already. And yes, I always thought that I would go back to Hamburg because I really love the river and the harbor, and it's nice to be at the Northern Sea or just in a couple of hours. And but my way was south, and so I think I will stay here. So we have lots of friends now, and the children are here and have their friends, and I really like working in the institute. So I think I will stay in Giessen. But we always say the surrounding of Giessen is very nice.
It is.
And Giessen it's okay.
Sounds great. But let us come to your work, or the work of your institute, which is really the topic of today. My question is, you mentioned something about mushrooms, and when I think about mushrooms, I see some people dancing in Woodstock or something else, and having mushrooms in their body, or part of mushrooms in their body, which are not the mushrooms I think you use. Is that right?
No, that's right. Exactly. Yes. Unfortunately not. No, we concentrate on edible mushrooms. So there are different kinds of mushrooms. So we have the so-called molds or ascomycetes. Everyone knows, and we really do not want to have them on our food or on our fridge or somewhere else. So these ascomycetes are not in the area of our interest, but with the edible fungi, so the so-called higher fungi or basidiomycetes or fungi, sorry. And so there are lots of different ones, and we use them for biotransformation and fermentation purposes mainly. But often related to aroma and flavor research. So there are really those two connecting things in our institute. The first thing are the higher fungi, and the second one are renewable raw materials from the food sector, I would say. But we are quite diverse in our research area. So we had project with lignin degradation for a while, and other strange things, or even off flavor analysis. And but back to the fungi and to the aroma compounds. So you can do lots of very interesting things. Of course, you can analyze flavor compounds fungi produce de novo. So there are really, of course, everyone knows that a champignon smells like dust. So it's a typical mushroom flavor, octene 3O, and other C8 compounds. But this is more or less, but there are several other interesting flavor compounds fungi can produce, like floral things or woodruff things, anise aldehyde, cinnamon aldehyde, so lots of different terpenes, and or dill ether, or strange lactones, and so really diverse palette of different compounds. So we can investigate what compounds are in one mushroom, and it depends on how you grow them. If you do submerged cultivation or on agar plates, or if you investigate the fruiting bodies, and sometimes we find very interesting pathways for the generation, and then we try to isolate the corresponding enzymes, and we try to find out the genes involved and do heterologous expressions. But all those things are not my area of expertise. I'm more the GC guy here. So I do or look into the biotransformation and the flavor analysis part of those aspects. And of course, this is not the only thing you can do. So just to look what flavor compounds are produced by the fungus, depending on the substrate. But you can use those mushrooms to transform maybe just one certain compound to another. So try just organic synthesis, more or less. There are very difficult things like allylic oxidation and other things you can look into. So, for example, I already did this during my PhD thesis. We had this valencine. This is compound out of orange peels. It smells green and fresh. We have quite a lot of them, and you can use lyophilizates, so freeze-dried Pleurotus sapidus. This is near relative of the oyster mushrooms. You can use this freeze-dried mushroom and put it together in an aqueous solution with a buffer and this valencine, and then it transforms it into a nude cartoon. And this is a highly sought after grapefruit character impact compound. So you just can biotransformation of a precursor to interesting flavor compounds. And of course, there you can try to that's really interesting, and you can try to find out again the enzymes involved and the metabolic pathways, and you can try to optimize all those things. But sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. And that's really cool. I mean, so I come from a paper chemistry background, so I know the lignins and the terpenes and stuff. So when you say valency, it comes to mind. I spent a lot of time looking at that, but I'd always seen that out of orange juice. Looking at packaging of orange juice. Like you said, coming from oranges, I never would have thought that came out of mushrooms at all. That's really pretty cool. So you get these orange or citrusy tastes. I'm just curious. So you've got these mushrooms growing and doing this. What are you growing the mushrooms out of? So the mushrooms have to grow in something. I mean, usually dirt. What do you grow mushrooms in?
In general, we use to grow the mushrooms in so-called submerged cultures. So this is just an aqueous a nutrition solution. And we have something called standard nutrition solution. There are lots of some salts, mineral salts in. There's glucose in for the energy, and then yeast, and this is more or less everything the fungus needs to grow. And of course, you can try to use different substrates and not to use artificial media, just to use other things. And this leads directly to another aspect of our research. So, of course, you can try to use a fungus to biotransform a single compound to another compound, but you can use complex substrates as well. So, as I mentioned, the renewable raw materials or side streams of the food processing, food industry. So, for example, you can use pomace of different origins, like apple pomace or blackcurrant pomace, and just add water, more or less, and autoclave it, and then inoculate it with our fungi. And then often the nutrition content is sufficient for the fungus to grow in there, and not only to grow, but to produce interesting aroma compounds. And we have had several projects involving biotransformation of those side streams to interesting flavor mixtures. Of course, you do not produce a single compound then, but you can produce lots of different compounds. And you always might think, okay, now they produce aroma, new fungi aroma you can put on a pizza or something. But the most interesting part here is that we completely, not we, but the fungi completely change the flavor impression. So from blackcurrant pomace maybe can be converted to wild strawberry aroma or something like this. So or to something that was I don't know, onion pomace. After a few or a couple of days, suddenly smells like lemon or something. So this is really, it's almost unbelievable, but it's really possible.
Yeah. Is there a practical use case for? So can I use the old things I don't need from the blackcurrant things and say, hey, I make something different out of that, which I can sell or which I can use another way?
Yeah, sure. This is always the intention. Just to produce more or less ready to use complex aroma mixtures. So you have something you normally throw away or give away as feed, and we can animal feed, of course. Something normally more or less throw away or put on the fields. We can use a portion of this just to generate natural flavor. And there are several industry cooperation who are really interested in commercializing or using those flavors. And there are lots of different patents on those things already.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. I mean, the reason I asked to begin with it, so, like I said, I used to work for a paper company, which means a lot of trees, and oranges grow on trees as well and take up a lot of space. And what you're doing here is actually pretty cool. You're taking, not only recycling something that is being thrown off as waste, but you're going to turn around and actually make, you're going to turn black currant into raspberries or something like that, and end up having a whole different flavor out of it you wouldn't have expected. Yeah, that's really neat. I mean, if you can get balancing that way, that's really neat. That saves up a lot of space in growing trees.
Yeah, so we try to upcycle all those. Of course, we do not call it waste because for us it's not waste, because it's raw material we can use to produce other things out of it. And there's another aspect. We use this fermentation systems not only to produce aroma compounds, or we might sell, or somebody else might sell, because as it's a natural flavor, and the natural flavor is because we use natural resources and fungus and no other things like just water and time, more or less, to produce these aroma compounds. So as European law says that we can call them natural flavor compounds. So no chemical synthesis is involved. But we can use those fungi directly to transform liquid substrates to other things, like analogous to the beer production, for example. So there we have wort, and then you put yeast in, and after a few days or several days, you have your beer. And we thought, okay, it might be why do not we use instead of yeast just our own basidiomycetes? And there we found out that several we did a huge screening, and lots of really disgusting things came out of it. But there were some species that really that really produced very nice flavored new non-alcoholic beverages. So you can just carbonate them and use them as a refreshing drink. So a new fermentation system for beverage production beside yeast and bacteria.
Where can we buy or get them?
Yeah, not yet. The one problem, but if you are around here, we always have more or less something in our fridge, so you can taste or try. But unfortunately, in Europe, we have this so-called novel food legislation. So that means if you use if you try to sell or put on the market a new product that was not on the market in the European Union before 1997 for the human consumption, you have to get an approval for it. And lots of, and this is really, that cost really much money. So you have to find someone who is willing to do all those official tests needed to get the approval by the EFSA.
So if someone in our audience will do that and spend some money to get some really exciting, refreshing, I assume, drinks, then and bring it to the market, I think we can bring you together with Marco. So
yeah, sure. you ever? I'm just going to ask. So you talked about the approvals process, and this used to happen to me doing flavor-related work. When you go to tell somebody at a party or just gathering of friends what you do they get shocked when they realize that the things they smell are actually chemicals? I mean, I used to get that all the time. Hey, you're smelling hexanal. Okay, it smells like grass. Well, that's a chemical, but it's not a chemical. No, it's a chemical.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, it's always this. And there are two types of reaction. The first one is, oh, do you still eat something? So, food chemist. I say yes.
You have to, I think.
Yeah, there's no other way out. And this is you have to talk a lot about those things, but fortunately, after living here more than 10 years and the people I educated most of them regarding this topic, and the others I just speak about other things.
Of course. No, that makes sense. And I know, of course, I know a little bit about what you're doing, but the audience may not. So you're actually like smelling what comes out of a gas chromatograph. I mean, you've got an ODP, you're an olfactory detection port. So describe that to people, who have never done it before. How did you get into using an ODP, and you're still using it a lot, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, this is more or less our standard equipment regarding the aroma profile analysis. And first, if we get a new project and we want to accomplish a new task, we always start with the screening. So there's no GC involved normally. So we just have hundreds of different fungi in our culture collection, and we put them on agar plates or in very small scale submerged cultures, and we just screen them by smelling what comes out of the flask or of the agar plate after 2, 3, 4, 5 days. And then if we find a candidate, we start investigation by upscaling and all those things. And of course, we are then interested not just by the smell, but we want to know what compounds are responsible for this overall odor impression. And then we have to produce a flavor extract. So there are different methods in the aroma community. Often you do a liquid extraction with organic solvents, and then solvent assisted flavor evaporation for cleaning your extract, and then you do GC. But so me personally, and I think there are some advantages, but lots of disadvantages by using organic solvents. So we were always interested in using alternative ways, and there the Gastel MPS really helps us to do new extraction and enrichment techniques, like as mentioned before, Justus, Beamy, and dynamic headspace. And we do those techniques to extract the flavor compounds out of our cultivation broth, and then we do the separation by GC. But it does not help to have a chromatogram with hundreds or several hundreds of different peaks. Nobody knows what is responsible for the flavor impression. So there's only one way to do it. You have to smell, and this is where the ODP comes into the game. So we in general 3 different people just sit in front of the ODP, of course not at the same time, but after each other, and just smell the effluent and just record which peak has which flavor impression.
Mm-hmm.
And normally we have, I don't know, between 10 and 60 different flavor compounds that are really smelling at the end. And then we try to identify, of course, those flavor compounds.
Yeah, that it reminds me of, so some of the things I've seen back when I was doing the work and then afterwards. You see a lot of part cutting or complex, like comprehensive GC, where someone says, "Hey, look, I've got red wine and there's 500 things in it," and I'm thinking, yeah, but only about 5 of them if anybody really wants to know. So yeah, it sounds like you have the same experience. The flavors can be complex, but a lot of those notes are minor or they don't really show up. I mean, decane does not have an odor. So you end up having to work this down into a short target list, and you have to do this with humans because the library search name is not going to help you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So right now, there's no other way than the human nose to identify. Of course, there are lots of different approaches, and you try to machine learning and artificial intelligence and all those things. And I think they will be more and more important in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, there's we have to do this traditional way and just to find out what is smelling and what not. And of course, you have to identify then those compounds, and you have to quantify them, and then you have to do reconstitution experiments with the correct concentration,
mm-hmm.
and to see if the things you have found out at the end have the same smell or odor impression than the original extract you generated. So this is really a cumbersome work. So it's you have not only this takes more or less months or years to if you want to do it right.
Thinking back to when you started ODP, I mean, do you have any advice for like the first time ODP user? I mean, someone or what do you tell your students when they use an ODP for the first time? Because I have thoughts, but I'm curious about how you handle it.
Yeah, so of course you have to train it as it's really something you cannot do right at the first time. So sometimes the students think, okay, they're highly motivated, and then they have a sample, really important sample, and then they want to smell just this and that. I always say, calm down a little bit and just practice this. You have to, you have to practice the breathing and the technique, and it's really exhausting. Nobody thinks that this is so exhausting. You are really concentrated for, I don't know, half an hour. And so, of course, we try to teach with standards so that we have more or less the same description for the same aroma compounds. Now then, of course, there's those standard advices to do not drink coffee between, and if you're a smoker, you can do other things in our labs, but not aroma ODP things.
Yep. Is everybody every student taught on the ODP, or how many people you have, or how many students you have per year to train?
Yeah, so this depends a little bit, but we have every semester we have between 20 and 30 students. The main time they are involved in research are during their bachelor thesis and their master thesis.
Mm-hmm.
So so we have more or less something between maybe 40 students doing research at our institute.
Wow.
But of course, they are not all doing flavor. So just a couple of them can do flavor research. And right now, COVID times this is really complicated, and I really hope that things will be sorted out. In the future.
That brings me to the next question. So when you train a bunch of people, how many of them are really qualified to get or to have the right nose and the right feeling about that? But I've heard that there is something you have to be qualified for. Not everybody can do that right. So do you have an expression or an idea how many people or how many percent?
I really don't. No, not really. But no, to be honest, I don't have the statistics about that. But sometimes people just say, "Okay, no, this is not mine." So we see that, lots of other people just have much more flavor impressions during a single run than one single person, and then it's obvious that this person is not qualified for this.
Yeah,
but so. But of course, it's no shame. There are lots of other interesting things, or you can just buy some beers for your colleagues, and they do. Then they do the research for you, the ODP sniffing part.
It sounds like your experience is similar to mine. I mean, everyone thinks the ODP is easy. You can just sit down and, hey, I'm just going to smell what comes out of there. But the breathing's part of it, and then as you pointed out, it can be exhausting. I mean, it's so hard for me when I do it. I'll be in front of the ODP, and I'll look across and think, I haven't changed the ferrules in that GC or that mechanical pump. It needs to get some new oil. And the next thing I know, my mind has wandered, and I just missed like 4 flavor notes. So the focus is hard.
Yeah. And of course, the peak is, 3 to 4 seconds and long, and then the flavor impression is gone. And then you have to think, okay, what was the impression? Was it, cheesy or apple-like? And then the next is already there. So you have to get used to it, and you have to get fast for your associations. So it's not easy.
Yeah, physically work.
But on the other hand, at parties, though, it was always great because someone said, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "Well, I smell like bad food. Something goes in a package and it went bad, and I got to figure out why." So everyone, at least it's the one area of science that everyone can relate to on some level. It's always fun to talk about the ODP stuff.
That's right. Yeah. So yes, we have a practical course where the students do sensory evaluations. They learn different techniques like triangle test and all these things. And one part is the GCO. And this is really interesting for them. And they are always really excited to see how a complex flavor breaks down to single compounds you can smell after they have been separated by the GC. So it's really interesting work. So it's not hard. It's not only hard work, but it's everyone is excited after that. So we have no problems finding people and doing these things in general. Of course, if you do off flavor work, then you have to somehow motivate the people. At one point,
I can imagine.
At one point we did a master thesis about off flavor of plastic. So this was not so nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyhow, but in general, you have more pleasant flavor impressions at the end of the GC and the ODP. Yeah.
Great. That's a lot of things you're doing, and when I see the analytical chemistry in your part is a big point or a big thing. What are you doing there? So generating aromas with fungi is one point, but bringing them or separate them again and make them visible or smellable is the other part. So a very, very interesting point you're working on. So I'm very impressed again. So we know us since years, but it's interesting again to talk about these topics. Are there any things our listeners can learn from your work directly?
Positively or negatively?
Yeah, this is a good question. I'm not sure if directly, but one thing we always run across in flavor research is that not only one extraction technique is enough. So often you think you have, I don't know, you have a spiny fiber in your lab and you want to find out what is smelling in your sample, and you use your one spiny fiber, but you only see or looking through a very tiny filter to your sample. And of course there are different spiny fibers, but often it's not enough just to use different spiny fiber to find out what is the origin of your flavor. You often have to use complementary techniques, so liquid extraction combined with dynamic headspace, for example, or spiny with other things, and you always have to use those different techniques to get a complete picture. So yeah, it might be one advice we've learned. We already missed one or two really impact compounds because we just used one or the other technique, and then by accident or later, of course, not by purpose, we use different extraction enrichment techniques, and we saw, okay, here are really, really important compounds we did not extract with the other technique.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, it's the same experience.
Course, yeah. So this is yeah.
Kurt, do you have a last, or not last, but we should come to the end question?
Well, yeah. So you're working on the raspberry flavors from mushrooms, from fungi. What's next? I mean, what would you what do you work? What's after that? What's coming down the research pipeline?
Yeah, so of course we have lots of other so far unused side streams we want to transform and make interesting flavors or beverage out of it. But there's another aspect that came to my boss' mind, because we always grew those fungi. They produce biomass just for the purpose of aroma production, and he thought, why do not use them as food for people, because everyone knows that the resources are limited and you cannot eat or farm so many animals everywhere, and the trend is going to alternative protein sources. So we want to combine those fermentation techniques for flavor production and just the production of new protein sources for the food industry. So there's really a really big project coming along together with the Störtebeker brewery. Some German people might know them. And
yes,
there we try to accomplish this protein thing. And maybe, and I don't know, in a few years, you can buy then burger made out of Pleurotus sapitus or other interesting fungi.
Sounds strange, but I'm interested in.
Yeah,
I'd eat that.
Yeah,
but I'm not picky.
Yeah, again, this is really, really good protein you can produce by submerged cultivation. of fungi, and so we are quite. We think that this might be really, really interesting and big thing to accomplish, to produce this protein in a bioreactor, and
definitely
not by raising animals.
Yeah. That was a great overview about your work, as I mentioned already. And yes, thanks for coming, Marco. That was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. Yeah, if we get any questions from our listeners, we'll pass them on. Definitely glad to have a chance to talk to someone else who does this work. It's always fun. That's what got Jan and I started in this. Is that I think anyone who does something with an ODP has a story to tell somewhere. There's always something going on.
It is, yes, and to get also your information out in the world, the big question is, where can our listeners find you? For example, on the internet or elsewhere, on any symposium or wherever you wherever you will be in the next time. So let us know, let our listeners know where they can find you and your work.
Yeah, so I think our work you can find, of course, on the homepage of our institute. So this might be the first address to surf to. And this is, there's a shorter URL for it. It's www.lcb-giessen, Giessen.de. And
we will definitely put that in the show notes, that you don't have to write it with you when you're driving your car or walking in the woods or jogging or jogging or whatever. So we put it in the show notes. You can read that. Marco, I know you are cycling. So if somebody listened on the bike, they don't have to stop and write that down in the moment. Any other addresses we should mention? You don't have to tell them in detail, so we can put that together later.
I think,
are you going to go to Analytica this year?
Unfortunately not. So no, I won't be there. I hope I will be in Hamburg at the Food Chemist days. I think they will be in September in Hamburg if everything goes well. So there we can meet in person, hopefully. We will see.
Okay. Yeah, it depends a little bit on the situation in the world.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Always.
Right.
Always, right. Yeah. Marco, again, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to see you and to listen to you again. Nice work. And hopefully we can meet us next time at your facility, please, because I would like to drink one of your beverages you have in your fridge, you mentioned. I would like to taste them.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, probably we can arrange something when you're here in Germany.
Yeah, which is about every other month. So yes.
Okay, looking forward to it. So thank you very much again for inviting me, and I'm really looking forward to your other guests and what they have to say.
Also, interesting stories around the analytical chemistry, that can I promise in the moment.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. Thank you to our listeners that they stayed such a long time with us here, and yes, have a nice time. We will be in your ears in the next episode.
Yes. There we go.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yep, see everyone. Bye.